Well, we're joined right now from Washington, D.C. by a former member of the company involved in this shooting attack, Bravo Company 216. Josh Stieber was not present at the time of this attack, but was a member of the company at the time and served for 14 months alongside the soldiers seen and heard in the video released by WikiLeaks. Josh left the military as a conscientious objector last year and is a member of Iraq Veterans Against the War. Josh, welcome to Democracy Now! On this day, July 12, 2007, where were you?
I was back on the main base and was not part of this mission because I had chosen not to follow an order a couple days before, so some of my leaders were upset at me and didn't trust me in a combat situation at that point.
Would you have been on the ground, that was the force that moved in on the van, or in the Apache helicopter?
I was in the company with the soldiers on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
And Josh, when the unit got back to the base, what did you all hear about this incident?
Just kind of the basic details that this is what happened. That whoever perceived it as a threat, and that different insurgents were killed. So just kind of the basic details, and people weren't talking about it a whole lot.
When did you hear that among the 12 people who were killed were 2 Reuters employees, this young photographer, Namir Nur el-Din, and his driver, Saeed Shema?
As far as I can remember, I didn't learn about that until I read the book that was written about my unit, The Good Soldiers, by Washington Post reporter David Finkel.
Then we're going to come back to this discussion. Josh Stieber, a veteran of the company involved in the July 2007 attack on the Iraqi civilians. It was video of this was just released by the media watchdog group WikiLeaks.org. It's believed someone in the military released this video to get the images out. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. We'll also find out why Josh left the military as a conscientious objector. Stay with us. We're joined by Josh Stieber in Washington, D.C., a veteran of the company involved in the July 2007 shooting of 12 Iraqi civilians. In the video released by WikiLeaks, he left the military as a conscientious objector last year and is a member of Iraqi Veterans Against the War. Your reaction when you saw this videotape, Josh?
When I first saw it, I was, kind of shocked that I recognized exactly what it was. And then as I watched it a second time and then started to read about some of the reactions from it, I guess I was also surprised a little bit by kind of the nature of the conversations because, again, not to morally justify what happened, and, as a conscientious objector, obviously I disagreed with our tactics, but I think the statements that have been put out by the military and by Secretary Gates yesterday have reaffirmed that what happened was by no means unusual. So I guess the nature of the conversation, I think, is the really important thing to focus on here, and that, the easy thing and maybe the natural thing to do would be to instantly judge or criticize the soldiers in this video, and again, not to justify what they did, but militarily speaking, they did exactly what they were trained to do. So I guess the point that I'm trying to make is that if we are shocked by this video, which again, it is a very shocking video, if we're shocked by this video, then we need to be asking questions of the larger system, because again, this is how these soldiers were trained to act.
Oh, well, Josh, I'd like to play some clips from the WikiLeaks video. Here, the cockpit learns from the soldiers on the ground that the victims include children. One voice says, well, it's their fault for bringing their kids to battle.
11 Iraqi KIAs, 1 small child wounded, over. Damn. Oh well.
Roger, we need a evac
The whole question of how soldiers reacted to civilian casualties. Could you talk about that? Your experience in the military when on one of these operations civilians were killed or wounded.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that it's definitely very troubling, but I guess thinking from the military mindset, and again, this is not trying to morally justify it, but to explain something from that perspective, that you have a lot of young, impressionable people that I think at one point were idealistic in why they enlisted and why they participated in the military, and they find themselves in this horrible situation where, again, it is acting out the training that we've been so instilled with to do things like this, and part of that training is the dehumanization of the people in whatever country we happen to be in. That's been the process throughout the history of militaries in general. So it's a result of the training, and I guess what I hear when I listen to that conversation in the helicopter is two things. One of them is that, as callous as it sounds, it seems to be beginning to have a little bit of remorse, like, wow, we just, this is what we actually just did, and then a quick response or a quick excuse to not let it trouble you. And throughout my military training, there were different times where things would trouble me as far back as basic training. And that's kind of, I think, a natural human reaction that, wow, this is what I'm being asked to do, but I'm told that that doing these things is in the best interest of my own country. And I think, this video should provide grounds for a much-needed conversation of whether or not that's true. But again, speaking from the military perspective, that's what people have going through their minds. So that callousness that the helicopter pilots have, one, is a result of military training that's hammered into them, and two, what I hear is an excuse, like, I feel like this isn't right, but then that quick excuse that, oh, well, they shouldn't have been there in the first place, to try and distance themselves from that act that just happened.
Do you recognize the voices?
Not in the helicopter, but from the troops on the ground, yes.
Let's go to two more clips. In this part of the video, we see around 8 Iraqis lying on the ground, dead or badly wounded. The soldiers claim the victims have weapons and laugh about the shooting.
Still firing. Roger. Got him. 2-6 is a 2-6. We'll move, but we got 13.
Oh, sorry. Well,
bypass.
God damn it, Kyle. Sorry. I hit my head. Roger. Currently engaging approximately 8 individuals, KIA, RPGs, and AK-47s. The Hotel 26, Crazy Horse, 1-8.
Oh, yeah, look at those dead bastards.
Spare 02, free change. Nice.
In this part,
Thank you.
in this part, we hear voices from the cockpit laughing as a Bradley tank drives over the dead body of one of the Iraqi victims.
Frequency.
Yeah, I just drove over a body. Yeah.
Frequency.
Yeah, I just drove over a body. Yeah.
Viper 5, 2 report, free change zone 4.
Josh Stieber, do you recognize those voices?
Those voices, no.
The voices you do recognize are which?
The ones granting permission to the folks in the helicopter when they ask for permission to open fire.
And who is giving the permission?
Those were different leaders and radio operators in the company.
Where are they?